Welcome to GLS Carriers Presents Team Talk. I'm Ken Kuntz. To my far left's Francis Ham, and we're welcome to have Jason with us today. You've heard a few podcasts about Jason. Well, this is Jason in person. We just traded a beard for beard today.
Yeah.
Welcome to the team, Jason.
Thank you. Yeah.
And we are
Drivers for Drivers.
Today we're going to talk a little bit about Jason and kind of how he progressed through his career and where he's at now and what he's going to be doing with our team down in Carthage.
You bet. Hey, just asking a favor here, Danny, can you help us out? Ken's not here today. He usually gets into the system and pulls up anniversaries and birthdays and stuff. So I'm not sure exactly who has an anniversary or birthday, but could you put something up on the screen for us? Because we want to recognize those folks for sure.
Absolutely. So there it is. And happy birthday
Happy
and happy
birthday.
anniversary, guys.
Yeah, thanks.
Sweet.
Thanks, guys.
Awesome.
Oh, let's see. Let's get into you, Jason.
Yeah.
All right. So, hi everybody. I'm really happy to be here. My name is Jason Maness.
Where's that last name from? Do you know?
So it's
It's from his parents.
yeah, it's from my parents. Yeah. It's not Scandinavian, but it's that kind of area.
Yeah.
Up north. I did a little research on it a long time ago, and it traces way back to Greek with a completely different spelling. And then as far as I could trace back, most likely my family's actually out of France.
Okay.
So then my grandparents, well, on my dad's side, of course, they met in Chicago and got married up there. And so then they all came down to Missouri somewhere in the early 60s. And then,
You guys have been there ever since.
yeah, everything takes off after that for me anyway. Yeah.
Right on, right
I'm
on.
always excited I'm always excited to hear where people's names come from because their personalities are usually kind of like. So I'm just saying, my mom is from Ireland. Her maiden name was Nichols, and Irish women are. And this is this isn't every Irish woman, but when you think of a redheaded. Tough Irish lady.
Yeah.
That was my grandma. She was like that. My mom's like that.
Yeah.
So usually a last name kind of tells you a little bit about the person. And I totally see
Right on.
I can see your Frenchness in there.
Yeah.
Like that.
Yeah, I got the notes for sure.
Refinement.
Absolutely.
All right, so I'll tie into that just a little bit more. So this is kind of cool. So in the Greek, Maness is spelled M-A-N-U-S, right? And it means of the spirit. Right?
Okay.
And then if you go back and research Jason, my first name, it means the great healer. And you can trade that to Jason and the Argonauts, right? So he's
Yeah.
the great healer. So it was just kind of a cool concept, and it does kind of go into some deeper part of my personality, like you're talking, the great healer of the spirits. So people always feel comfortable coming up and talk to me. I never really understand why.
Yeah.
But that's how it is. So maybe there is some deeper truth into that. So
Sure.
it's just a pretty interesting thing to kind of do some research on yourself about stuff like that. So.
Yeah, you guys, if you're watching, put in the comments, go ahead and tell us a little bit about your last name. I don't know. Just be kind of fun to learn more about you.
No, absolutely. So you're living in Carthage.
So living in Carthage, yeah. So way back in, I'd say 2011, I started thinking about, maybe I need to start being a truck driver or something, So I started looking at some different jobs. And at first I was like, just wanted to get in maybe some box truck delivery stuff. Everybody wanted a CDL. So here I go, I'm going off to CDL school, and I get into the big. I go for Class A. Go driving over the road for about a year and a half. And then the whole goal, all of it, was to be able to be home, right? That was my goals, my wife's goal. We want to go out and do something that is going to be always there, available to find work, and eventually get to where I'm going to be doing it and be home every night. So that was always the goal, and that opportunity came up a lot sooner than I expected. There was a local trucking company where we live at. They were hiring for some local drivers, and I went in there, and at the time they were saying 2 years experience. I didn't have that yet, but I went in for the interview anyway. And that just goes to say, if you want something, go for it, regardless of what is being said about what it is you're trying to go for it. Put your best foot forward. You never know. Okay, so that opportunity came up. I went for it, and I got hired. So I was back out with the company I was driving for like another 3 weeks. They called me back, said, we want you. So then I called my dispatcher and said, hey, you need to route me in, give my 2-week notice. I'm going over to do this other thing. So I worked there as a driver, doing that local stuff. And at the time, I came in at a really good time. They had a dedicated lane just running. It was like 127 miles. You did 2 trips a day on that, and you were done. But then they were working on expanding that local. So then things got into more of a really close shuttle, and I got in on that program. So from there, we're working together, and we're really expanding that. They hired a whole bunch of drivers in, and did that for about 4 years. But in that time, made good friends with everybody. You get pretty tight when you're running a shuttle group like that. Everybody gets to know each other. All the drivers really get to know each other. You spend some time, you end up spending some time together when you're off for the day or whatever. But anyway, one of my buddies, we were sitting there in the office one night checking in for work. We're getting ready to start our shift, and the company had just started a 401k program. So we're all talking about that and what we're doing and what our plans are for the next 5-10 years. So my friend Paul, he says, where do you see yourself in 5 years, right? And we're in the office, my boss right there. I said, behind that desk. Okay? That's right. So I had my goals and my plans, because I knew I was already kind of getting old. I know I wasn't going to be able to drive the truck forever. So I knew I needed to start working on making that next step, right? And it came about that then our boss is talking about retiring. And we're in there, a couple years later, and I said, hey, I wasn't kidding about that. He goes, I didn't think you were.
Yeah.
So, time progresses, and he keeps talking more and more about retiring. And finally, he's like, okay, so I've got my retirement date. He says, I'm retiring in 2 years. I went ahead and put my resume in for that job, right? And I'm just waiting my time for them to call me in. So we'll kind of, stories get better. So it's getting really close now, right? He's like, we're only like a year away from him retiring, and there's a lot to learn. This is a huge program. There's a lot of customers. There's a lot of things that I know I need to get in and start learning, and it's probably going to take at least all of that year for me to get in there and learn everything that he's got to offer and start making relationships with those customers that I'm going to be working with, because I already know all the drivers, right? Those relationships are built.
Yeah.
So a dispatch position comes open, and I haven't really heard anything from upper management yet about this, So I went ahead and put my application in for the dispatch job. Next day they call me up and they're like, hey, you put in for this dispatch job? I said, yeah. It was okay. So why don't you come in and interview for it? I'm like, I'm at work. At this time I've worked myself from night shift to day shift. So, and that takes a really long time. Okay. In trucking, it's not like working a factory line. You've got to wait for positions to come open, right? Because you're running that position. You got to wait for somebody to retire or go somewhere else, or a new opportunity, new lane that has come open where they're shifting drivers around and hiring new people in. Then you get the opportunity to move. So that's something that's really got to be in the back of your mind if you're looking at doing that kind of work. It's going to take a while to get where you really want to be.
Mm-hmm.
But you just got to be patient and do a good job. So I'd work my way from night shift to day shift, right? So I'm dirty, I'm nasty, I'm sweaty, I got my boots on. It's been muddy, rained the night before. So I come into the office to interview. And so my boss is there, and then the president of the company is there to interview me for a dispatch position, right? Not the driver manager or the ops planner. No, it's the president of the company and my boss. Right. So, and she comes out, she's got my application form, and then she's got the manila folder. So we sit down at the table, and my boss, Hal, looks at me, he goes, so you applied for this, And then, but I thought you wanted to take over for me. I said, well, I do. But I figured since nothing's been moving on this, that if I put in for that, I'd at least get an interview and get in here to talk to you. So then the president of the company says, okay, takes my application, wads it up, throws it in the trash, pulls out the manila folder, and it's my resume. So then we go over all my history of what I've been doing, pretty much my entire life. They know my driving history, so I got, a good record there. I had my little hiccups, of course, every driver does. There's no way you're going to drive for that many years and not tap something. It's just, it's
statistics
inevitable.
are
Right.
against
Statistics are going to get you. But we really got talking into, because I was going into a management and operations position now, which is what I've come here to do, right? So we start discussing that, and that then gets me back into my military history. I started out in the military, kind of the same way. I was humping a radio on my back. But in that experience, there's parts where you get into operations, even as being that junior soldier or Marine or whatever, and you still get into that situation, especially in communications, because it's all tied in. So I eventually worked my way there into working in the operations cell, and I loved it. So I stayed there, and I always, throughout my entire military career, I went from Marine Corps to the Army National Guard. So I had a lot of changes in MOSs, did a lot of different things throughout the years, but I always worked myself back into the operations because that's where my passion was. And then the last 10, 12 years of my military service in the National Guard, that's all I did was in operations. So I was involved in the planning, taking care of the soldiers, getting the missions out there. And that relates back to trucking. It's all, we got different terminology for it between trucking and what we do in the military, but it's really all the same.
Sure.
The mission is it's getting that truck from point A to point B, getting that product produced, keeping the customers happy, right? So that's what we're here, and that's what we're about.
No, that's great. That's great. I know in reviewing your resume and bringing you on, first I'd like to recognize you did collectively over 20 years in the service, and want to definitely thank you for your time and what you've done for our country. That's great. And then on the transportation side, so you were a driver as well, and we definitely push Drivers for Drivers, looking at your resume and interviewing you as well. And now I've had an opportunity to spend some quality time with you too. And you're not only a great guy, but I think you're a great fit on the team, so definitely look forward to a lot of years working with you, We spent some time down driving around in Webb City and Joplin and Carthage and Neosho, all that, just looking at customer locations.
Oh, yeah.
You showed a lot of that to me.
That was a good time down there running around and seeing what all the opportunities are we got down there in Southwest Missouri.
Absolutely.
It'd been nice to get down to Northwest Arkansas, but that's a bit of a drive. But,
Yeah.
But it's there. It's there.
Next time.
Yeah. And, for us going into that area, first of all, there's just great people everywhere,
Right.
And we did contact some of those prospective customers right away, and we already have hauled freight for them. So that's a good thing there. But in our operation going in there in that yard, you guys have just had an incredible amount of rain that's kind of slowing things down. Hopefully that's going to dry up a little bit. It's kind of one of those deals. You don't want it to dry up,
Right.
but you need it to dry up, right?
Yeah.
So hopefully we can get it dried up.
It's been, it's a blessing. We've been dry for a long time down there. So, it's delayed stuff here for what we're wanting to do and our goals here, but it's also a blessing. But we're going to get there. It's going to dry up. It's starting to get towards that time of year for us for it to go away. So
You bet.
and then they'll start really jamming on that. And
No,
I think things will go
absolutely.
quickly after it gets dried up a bit. It's probably dried up enough this week. They're starting to dig that pond out.
Yeah,
for us, so.
I think they're out there. They're staking some stuff out. That's
Yeah.
for sure. So we're going to run some long haul operations out of that yard. We'll probably do some hub and spoke out of there, some regional, and then some local as well. And I think every one of those opportunities exist into that market.
Definitely.
When you look at the driver pool that's available, looking at this area where we're at right now, there's like 14,000 drivers or something. And then in that Missouri area that where you currently live, in that geographic area, there's like 40,000 drivers.
Sure.
So there's a much larger driver pool. There's a lot of freight that moves in the Midwest, you know, running back and forth. And we look at really growing, you know, that yard and those opportunities down there as well. It's kind of nice that drivers that join our team can live just about anywhere.
Yeah.
You know, we can run them wherever they live and back to the house and stuff. And we can do that out of Idaho here, and we can do that out of in Missouri. Mm-hmm. And so that makes a good fit. The fact that you yourself were a driver, you understand what it's like to be out in a truck and running. And I think that plays key too for our guys, because they are out running, you know, guys and gals, they're out running and doing a great job. And to know that behind them, we are looking out for their best interest.
Absolutely.
So that's a big part of it. You know, I think once we get into that yard and we start actually using it, I think people will be real happy with, you know, everything being laid out correctly to help them get in and out. Reduce some of the downtime, get them running and onto that revenue, you know, because that truck's just not making any money when it's parked.
Sure.
So it's good stuff.
Going back to that, having that experience as a driver and letting everybody know that you're there to take care of the drivers, you got to take care of your team. You take care of your team's going to take care of you, and everything will go real smooth for everybody. So it's and having that background experience as drivers, it gives us a little more empathy towards what they're doing out there for us. You know, what they're
for
dealing
sure.
with, you know.
I'm assuming you got the job.
Right.
How long were you with that company?
I started with them in 2014, so I'm terrible at math.
9 years.
9 years. Yeah, 9 years, 9.5 years.
Yep.
Nice.
Yeah.
It's good long run, but you know.
You bet.
Well, I have a question for you guys. So, Jason, you were talking about how important it is for that communication with. We all know we need to communicate with our dispatchers and everything. You were just talking about opportunities that open up just from being personable with your coworkers.
Absolutely.
And the other drivers. And what do you have any suggestions for somebody who that's not their first inclination is to communicate with their, you know, they don't really, that's not their thing, is communicating with people and hanging out with people. Do you have any suggestions for somebody that struggles with that, you know, like little things they could do? We might not have any suggestions, but I was just wondering about that.
Sure. So for people that struggle with like just being verbal or interpersonal, you know, right there having that conversation, one of the best things that you can do to still get your needs across is write a little note, write a letter, shoot a text or an email, you know, and just lay out there what you're looking for, or what you're needing, you know, and I understand that. I used to be really shy, right? But particularly moving up in the military, you got to get over that, you know. Communication is such a big key, and if you want to go anywhere in the military, you need to be able to communicate both directions really well. So you got to get over that, and that was one of the things that helped me break out, was to do that. Right, you know, write a note to my leader or whatever, because sometimes it's really hard to express our desires, right? And that's what we're going for. Our desires are our goals. Where do I want to be in 5 years? How do you express that to your manager?
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Sometimes that can be really hard to verbalize. To kind of break over that hump, you know, just maybe write a letter.
Yeah.
You know.
No, absolutely. You know, Kenny, I know you talked to all of our drivers, and you've got good relationships with basically everybody.
I like to think so.
Yeah, and you do. I've heard a lot of them and stuff, and every time I've talked to people, they've always kind of mentioned that, you know. And I think one of the things that makes that nice is just in a communication with the people on the team, whenever there's something that we need to cover, Right. And it may not be the optimal lane or something like that, or it may be one of these deals where a customer has a need and we need to jump on there and try to help them out and get going on it. There are those people on the team, through talking to them, that we can pick the phone up and call them and just say, hey, we need a hand, and they'll jump right in there, and you have those relationships to talk with those folks. And not saying that not everybody would do that, but you got those key people that you kind of go to, right, and they really help out in a bind,
Sure.
And our team does a lot of that, but there's just those times where it's like, hey, we need somebody, and it's like, hey, I know who to call.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and working with them all the time too, that shyness breaks down them barriers, where a guy may not be a real social butterfly, but once he's around you enough, he gets more comfortable, and in dispatch, they're always talking to him,
Yeah.
and that goes a long way with getting people engaged. I like how you were talking about setting goals. We've had podcasts and that on setting goals. We have drivers that come in as a company guy, and then they go to owner or operator, and then we help them get their own authorities, and watching that goals get fulfilled, it's pretty fulfilling on our side as well. It's like, yeah.
Oh yeah, and absolutely. One of the best things throughout my career in transportation and in the military both was helping the youngsters getting started out
Yeah.
to make it to the next step, and watching them progress and seeing them become, better, make improvements, and reach that goal that they're looking for. Yeah, I was enlisted my whole time in the military, but I have helped and watched young enlisted soldiers come in and wanted to go into the officer corps, and to mentorship, and to have the privilege to mentorship somebody like that, and to watch them progress and go from the enlisted ranks into the officer corps and be successful is one of the best experiences of my life.
Absolutely.
To see that young soldier make it there. And same thing in trucking. I've had young drivers come in and they're struggling, and just to help them out, say, hey, what are you doing here? And then and see where they're struggling, help them, and then in that conversation with them, they get more comfortable with you, because they become trusting. So that's another thing, in that, having that good open line. You build that trust and having that good open line of communication with your folks.
And not to give up.
Right.
There's stumbling blocks in everybody's career.
Yeah.
There's up and downs with the economies. There's all sorts of things, and a guy can get discouraged. But if they really want that career and that's what they want to do, persevere.
Yep.
Yep, for sure.
Absolutely.
For sure. I'm hoping 60 days or so, maybe we'll be on the grounds there.
That'd be good.
Yeah,
That'd be
absolutely. Absolutely. Definitely look forward to that.
You were talking about that 5 year, like, what do you see in 5 years? Made me think about, I just kind of want to know, we have a new yard over there. What is something you hope that drivers in that area will take advantage of with this new yard? Like, what kind of your hope for the next 5 years? Like, where do you kind of see this yard going, and how is it going to help drivers in that area?
And so my goal in having this operation down there, initially, my goal is to be able to help all of our OTR divisions, all of our long haul drivers, get in there, drop off whatever it is they're dropping off, get their next load, and get back on the road. All right, my big goal is to save you guys as much hours as possible and keep your wheels rolling. All right. A longer term goal, and I'm not saying like long term 10, 20. I'm saying in the next 2 to 3 years, really. What I want to see there is that Giltner GLS becomes the preferred carrier for local movements in the area, and regional movements in the area. That's what I want. I want the whole customer base down there to be looking at us and saying, I know that these guys can get my goods moved where they need to be on time, and make that happen for us. So that's my personal goal with this facility.
That's a good goal.
It is.
Yeah.
Great goal. Great goal. Absolutely. Absolutely.
This is about the time we usually do a safety tip. Francis, I know you got one on the back of your mind.
I do. You know, a lot of times when we talk about safety and stuff, I kind of talk about off the wall kind of stuff that we don't really think about all the time, you know, but it's definitely relevant. I was coming in to the office last week. I'd actually gone to the house for lunch, and I was coming back in, and I was sitting at a traffic light, and a guy had come up in an aggregate truck next to me, and first thing I noticed is he was stopping. All I heard was, you know, all these brakes grinding and stuff like that, and he's standing on the brake at the light, and I just heard a ton of air leaks everywhere. And I was thinking, wow, that's pretty bad, you know, pretty rough.
So you're saying that's not normal? It's not supposed to make that sound?
No, it's not the norm. That's for sure. One of the things that wear out on tractors and trailers, and sometimes they tend to get neglected, are glad hand seals. The seals on the glad hands. Right now, we're in the time of the year here where we're seeing a lot of these little miller moths flying everywhere, you know. Mm-hmm. And some of those glad hand seals, they have the little cover like inside of it with the X inside on the rubber so that the air will pass through, but it keeps the miller moths and everything out of there. Because what happens is those little guys, they want to get into there, and then all of a sudden you hit them with 120 pounds of air pressure, and they plug up all your screens and stuff and your valves and everything else. Is really when you're hooking up tractor and trailer, checking those rubber seals to make sure that they're good. You know, I think everybody kind of knows you spit on your finger and you kind of rub it a little bit and put it in there, and oh yeah, it's going to seal now, right? Well, that only lasts for so long. So they're fairly cheap. They're $1 a piece or something like that, you know. And if they need to be replaced, replace them. You know, I've seen guys beat their glad hands tighter and tighter and tighter
until they break.
Yeah, until they break.
So you break that ear off.
It's just a bad deal. So pay attention to that on the trailers and on the trucks. If they're starting to wear, they're a wear item. Couple bucks save you a ton of money down the road.
Yep.
So
and when you're in a facility, pick some up.
Yeah, that's right.
Pick some up, you know.
Yeah.
I used to carry 5 or 6 of each color, red and blue. We had them color coded to make it easy for everybody. But yeah. And I remember one time I went in to get some of those, and they said, "Well, you know, which one do you need?" I said, "Both." They're like, "Really? You wore out both?" I said, "Well, no, I need spares." He was like, "Oh, okay. Well, how many?" I said, 5 each. Oh my gosh! I said, I want to be on the road for who knows how long, 4 or 5 weeks.
Yeah.
Picking up 3 or 4 different trailers. I don't know what I'm going to run into out there.
Yeah.
I want to have all the stuff I need to be prepared.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
And for a couple of dollars.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. No, that's it.
Absolutely.
hey, that was a good one. Man, if I'd clap if I could. That's a really good safety tip. And I learned something, that the trailers and trucks aren't supposed to be making that noise. So,
Yeah.
I'd like to add a little bit to that. We're coming into the year where there's a lot of chip sealing and stuff going on, you know, and they do try to broom that, but they don't get all that up, you know. The following too close and taking rocks in your windshields, you know, just back off, give plenty of room, and definitely we want brakes. But then windshields, you know, they can get expensive, you know, especially these newer ones with the one-piece windshield. You're not just replacing a $100 half a windshield anymore, you know. So just be aware of your surroundings, you know. You're hearing them rocks hitting and they're flying off other vehicles.
Yep. Absolutely.
Danny, I know you got one more question in you.
I don't today. I threw them out. I threw them all out to you. But that was really great. I was super excited. I just wanted to tell you, Jason, like Francis and the guys have been really excited to have you join the team, and it was kind of fun. I think Francis came in Monday and was like, he just looked like a kid who just got a new toy, talking about how excited he was that you were here this week. And really, all of you guys and gals watching, these guys really do. They're excited about you guys and your successes, and we just appreciate all you do. So just wanted you to know that.
You bet. You bet. That's great, Danny, and absolutely right. Absolutely right. Everything that our team does out there and helps us be successful is very, very much appreciated. I know on the backside, behind the scenes, we're working with different customers and whatnot, trying to help with everything that we can on our side. Communication is one that we're always working on, try to improve the communication and whatnot. So we'll continue to drive on that. I know, Kenny, you've been moving a lot of dedicated freight here lately.
Boy, howdy.
Yeah.
I appreciate everybody stepping up and doing that as well. You know, it's helped their revenue as well, you know, and we're getting more and more of that freight, which is good to hear, you know. What we don't want to do is a bunch of brokered freight, you know. We want to run our own freight, you know, for our customers. And I just like to be the fifth or sixth person that's told you, you know, to welcome aboard. I hope we made you feel welcome.
Oh yeah, everybody here, you know, has made me feel really welcome. It's been a really great week. So
Didn't know you were going to be
glad
on
to be here.
podcast.
Yeah, that was a little bit of a hey, guess what? But, you know, and that's fine. You know, I'm glad to be able to kind of put myself out there and let everybody else, you know, hear from me and see me and hopefully, well, I know we're going to make great things happen here. So
Absolutely.
it's going to be good.
Yeah, if you're listening and you're out in that Carthage area, are they allowed to come and see you, Jason?
Sure. I don't know where my office is yet, so we're working on getting me a temporary office here, but we'll get that out there.
Yep, for sure. For sure.
We'd like to thank everyone for joining us today. Thank you for joining us today.
Yeah. Thanks for inviting me.
We missed Ken today, but I'm sure his beard will be back next week.
Yeah.
Bright and shiny.
I don't have his exact wording to end the show, but it's tune in next time, I think. Or, as always, be safe out there, your eyes and ears. Something about on the road. We're successful when you're successful, and complete your journey and home safe with your loved ones.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us.
Thanks.
Thank
See
you,
ya.
everybody.